And gentlemen, hello and welcome to SATV's International Affairs live from SATV studio. We will have a guest today, Professor Dr. Niloy Biswas. He is the Professor of International Relations, Dhaka University. He will be joining us soon, and at studio we have our regular International Affairs commentator, Shamsul Alam Panto. Let us first ask him what you are going to pick from international affairs, international headlines and global events today in today's talk show.
Thank you, Mr. Kanchan. As we await arrival for Dr. Niloy Biswas, also a very good afternoon to our viewers. First of all, I'll touch a couple of topics. Very first would be that the Britain government and the Britain Parliament is horrified at the escalation that is taking place in the Gaza Strip. This comes in as Keir Starmer and his Parliament in the UK raised this issue where the UK government has suspended free trade talk with Israel. Alongside that, Donald Trump has said that he will put weapons in floating space as a part of the defense program called Golden Dome. Not just that, following America's lifting of sanctions on Syria, the European Union has followed suit and also decided on lifting of sanctions. This is definitely concerning the transport, energy and banking sectors. Aside from that, I have news from Pakistan. Ever since Field Marshal Ayub Khan, there hasn't been a Field Marshal appointed or promoted. General Munir was promoted to the rank of Field Marshal in Pakistan as of yesterday.
So I also want to add with you something from Pakistani media as they made it headlines today, ladies and gentlemen. There is one sad news, a tragic school bus bombing in Khujjar. A suicide car bombing targeted a school bus in Khujjar, Balochistan. Balochistan is a disputed area for Pakistan, resulting 5 fatalities, including at least 3 children and injuring 38 others. The attack is suspected to be carried out by the Balochistan Liberation Army (BLA). Though no group has claimed responsibility, Pakistan Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi and Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif condemned the bombing, labelling it an act of barbarism and accusing India without evidence. India did not give any statement yet on this particular. Sir, may I ask you one thing, that Donald Trump announces Golden Dome defense system. Current US President Donald J. Trump has unveiled plans for $175 billion missile defense systems dubbed the Golden Dome, modeled after Israel's Iron Dome, with an initial allocation of $25 billion. My question is, America has invented Iron Dome, supported it to Israel. They are very good friend or good allies country for destroying the peace in Middle East and in the world. Now they are upgrading their dome systems. Do you find any indications that America is looking after its military capability, thinking about that there are more wars in future, near future? That's why Iron Dome has been launched and budget is so high, $175 billion.
Thank you for your question and the statement. Actually, you see Israel, they developed their Iron Dome. It is to stop the intercontinental ballistic missile attacks on their land. However, last weekend or earlier this month, we've seen Donald Trump supplying armaments to the Middle East. Of course, this will raise questions in his hometown or in the United States, what he has done to safeguard and protect his own nation. So this, as he went back to America and he is thinking about his own people currently, definitely having such a setup like the Golden Dome would be definitely necessary. And not just that, you mentioned about a suicide attempt in the Balochistan province that's actually shared with neighboring Iran on the other side. Not just that, couple of weeks ago or a month ago, we've seen a hijacking of a train by the Balochistan Liberation Army. So this was way before the Pahalgam attack and their offensive with India. But I would say even yesterday we spoke about how India coordinated an attack on Amritsar Golden Temple in order to, and then they blamed it on Pakistan. A similar notion has been now created in Pakistan, likewise, in which the Pakistani officials do somewhat blame India. So ceasefire that Donald Trump initiated at on May 10th or May 11th, that was simply a pause, according to Mr. Narendra Modi's nation speech.
Yes.
So how long is this pause, and when will this proxy war in each other's country and this blame game stop is definitely a question of the general public. Definitely we'll see the developments in the upcoming days. They should hold this ceasefire for far longer to have any kind of major damages in their communities.
According to your statement, I have some interesting relevant news from Indian medias. Times of India says India has intensified military operations under Operation Sindoor, targeting terror infrastructure in Pakistan, inside Pakistan, especially occupied Kashmir. The Indian Air Force showcased its Rafale jets and BrahMos missiles in action, while the army released footage of missile deployments and S-400 systems. Pakistan military headquarters is reportedly being relocated following strikes on the Noor Khan Airways. I want to draw your attention on another actions by India, that is 14 individuals have been arrested across North India for allegedly leaking sensitive information to Pakistan. These are all Indian nations, Indian nationalities, Indian citizens. The National Investigation Agency NIA and Intelligence Bureau IB are interrogating the suspects, including Jayati Malhotra, whose diary reportedly contains troubling details. Do you think these actions taken by Indian government, Modi government and Indian militaries are actually creating ground to go for a further battle with Pakistan?
At this stage, the ceasefire has, even in the first days of the ceasefire, we've seen it's been very fragile. Not just that, definitely Pakistan did succumb to some type of damages at the Noor Khan base. Notice that the nuclear credentials of the country supposedly were stored in that location. However, in the leadership of Mr. Munir, the General Munir, he has changed the HQ to Islamabad. Definitely this comes as they have now understand that India has targeted this military infrastructure as a terror camp. Not just that, India's notion towards Pakistan wouldn't be that no, Pakistan is my neighboring country. Their notion would be that Pakistan harbors terrorists in almost all of the states. However, this is far from the reality. Today, I've told earlier that he has been promoted to Field Marshal, a ranking that has not existed with anyone up until the last, that was in 1965. Anyhow, at this moment, you must understand that the BJP government have been running more or less more than 10-15 years. Yeah. Definitely, given that amount of time frame, there are focus groups or stakeholders who would want to see a more destabilized India. Of course, this is a format of war, if we would call it a Cold War, a blame game.
Yeah.
It may set, later in the year, it may set grounds for a more of a tactical strike between the two countries. Of course, we being in Bangladesh, we won't want such a tactical strike happening with our neighbors, because both of the countries are our neighbors. So we should try to see if they can sit with dialogue.
Yeah, one more thing is relevant to India's military move, but I find a smell the problem with the Bangladesh. India addresses United Nations Security Council. India emphasized maritime security and counter-terrorism as vital as to its national interest during the United Nations Security Council meeting. The country highlighted the importance of protecting its vast coastline, I repeat, coastline, which is with us, in Bangladesh, in Bay of Bengal, and trade routes as well as combating terrorism. Do you find any relevance with Bangladesh with this move?
After the fall of a dictatorial government that we've had, it was after many years that we were establishing a trade route, a sea trade route with Karachi in Pakistan. Not just that, 2 shipments did come about. It was majorly food, grain and necessities for the Bengali people before Ramadan, if you would say. Back then, the Indian Godi media, if you would call them, they have stated that they had sent us ammunitions to besiege the Seven Sisters.
Which was absolutely fake.
Which was absolutely fake. No such import has been done by our interim government. Anyhow, as you say, India is, they're not happy with themselves, first of all. Any country who is happy with themselves will not go blatantly into their neighbors and poking their nose or trying to question their sovereignty. Not just that, over the past couple of weeks, we've seen India trying to establish their own trade route over the sovereign lands and the sovereign sea waters of Bangladesh. So once again, I would say India does not, whoever is in charge of India right now, the elected government, they should really analyze what's happening in their war room.
Sir, I have a very interesting question. Rajiv Gandhi, former Prime Minister of India, he belongs to Congress party.
Right.
Now, the Modi government belongs to BJP, Bharatiya Janata Party. But interestingly, they commemorated National Anti-Terrorism Day on May 21, I mean today, marking the death anniversary of former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. The day serves to promote unity against terrorism and honor Gandhi's legacy. Do you find this is out-of-box thinking to honor a Congress Prime Minister by the BJP Prime Minister or BJP government? Do you find any smell on this that Indians are not happy, as you said, within themselves?
I'll give you some history. Mohandas Gandhi, the labor leader of India, he lost his life due to an assassination. Then we have Indira Gandhi as well, who lost her life to an assassination. Whether these are assassination or bouts attempt at terrorism is a matter of question. So as you said, today the Congress party's, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi's death anniversary is being celebrated as an anti-terrorism day. So really what kind of priorities they have set themselves in India, what is the rhetoric that everyone in India follows is a matter of question to me actually, because most of the statements are very contradictory to what the reality on the ground is.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we have got Professor Dr. Nilay Ranjan Bishwas. He is a professor of international relations, University of Dhaka. Due to huge traffic in the city, he is a little bit late. He has joined right now. And Professor Nilay, welcome to SATV's International Affairs program.
It's a pleasure.
First of all, I want to request you what topics from international headlines you want to pick today in today's program. Already me and our international affairs commentator discuss few of the subcontinental issues.
Right. Thank you so much. First of all, I consider this as a great opportunity to discuss among the August gathering here, and I think a lot of things are happening, but out of South Asia, progress regarding the war in the front of Europe, particularly when we are talking about Russia-Ukraine war, what is progressing is one of the big issues at this moment. And also, I think certain important developments have been taking place in Middle East, particularly in Qatar, and the visit of the high-level visit from the United States in the last week have also been very significant in terms of U.S. relations with Iran, U.S. relations in Syria, and how that will have a trickle-down impact on the Israel-Palestinian issue. So broadly, stability in Middle East has been a very significant issue throughout the days, if not particularly today, but throughout the last few days, I say.
I want to draw your attention on EU. European Union imposes new sanctions on Russia. Why suddenly new sanctions on Russia? The European Union has adopted 4 new sets of sanctions against Russia, targeting Moscow's shadow fleet and further isolating its economy amid the ongoing Ukraine conflict. I want to give you a background. Last week in Turkey, Russia and Ukraine tried to go for a negotiation meeting. They sat in the table, they talked, but no progress has been done. Though President Donald Trump has said that he talked 2 hours with Vladimir Putin and Zelensky as well, and both of them, I mean Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has on principle agreed to go for a ceasefire. Do you think in this situation EU imposes and offers sanctions to Russia will again poke Russia not to sit in the table?
I think you were right in one sense that this was a little bit surprising, but at the same time I think if you look at the relations between the European Union countries, certain European Union countries dealing with this particular issue, Russia-Ukraine war, and their usual affinity towards which is more towards Ukraine, is somewhat different from when Donald Trump has taken into the administration in the United States. And in the I would not say that stark differences between US approach to deal with the US the Russia-Ukraine war with the European Union, but EU has obviously have an exclusive approach to deal with these issues. The reason why economic sanctions are important for the EU point of view, because they have certain rules and regulations that they have to maintain always, particularly from the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine war, doing trade with Russia. As you know, that certain European countries are quite dependent on the energy products, on Russia particularly, and they had to put sanctions from earlier periods. And then there were individualized approaches. For example, Germany eased some actions, particularly getting some energy products from Russia. It was a huge issue because as part of the EU membership, all countries have to follow the EU rules and regulations, and those norms were basically approved by the EU Parliament. So the sanctions that European Union imposed was surprising to an extent when we were talking about more positive improvements, particularly through US mediation in Turkey, and Turkey's role is also important in this particular regard. But at this moment, this might hamper the processes quite significantly. But at the other way, in the negotiation we talk that certain times this kind of tools are used as a bargaining policy. So maybe it can create, which is a little bit unlikely, but it may create a bit pressure on Russia to discuss more in an amicable way, because we understand that at this moment the major obstacle to go for a ceasefire agreement particularly for Ukraine is Russia's strong hold over the regions which was declared as independent one. Technically this Russia helped capturing or separating the regions from Ukraine to create a buffer zone between Ukraine and Russia, and those two countries which were emerged as quote-unquote independent country, only recognized by handful of countries, is probably the major issue between Russia and Ukraine at this moment, that whether Ukraine will be agreeing to any deal keeping those countries as independent as Russia is demanding for. So I think this is the major issue between these two countries at this moment. It seems like and there was a very not a very strong argument coming from the United States, but it looks like that US would probably go with a ceasefire deal keeping this as a status quo. Therefore, more towards the Russian side than the Ukrainian side. I mean, it's too early to talk about it, a little bit early, I would say, but maybe these sanctions would create a bit pressure on Russia to sit again with Mr. Zelensky, with Ukraine, and to come into a win-win situation, a win-win deal.
Very fair description. I wanted to say to my audience that Professor Niloy Ranjan Bishwas, he reads about international affairs, he writes on international affairs. Today he is very well speaking on international affairs. I will come back to you, sir.
Sure.
From your statement, I want to pick one question, because in journalism we understand connecting dots will give you the resulting of international events. But I find a different things here. UK suspends trade talks with Israel. We know UK is one of the largest partner and the biggest trustworthy partner of United Nations and Israel as well. But the United Kingdom has halted free trade negotiations with Israel and imposed sanctions in response to Israel's actions in Gaza, aligning with growing international pressure. Our international affairs commentator, Mr. Shamsul Alam Pantho, who has a keen observation on these particular events, Israel and Gaza issues. Do you think when America, I mean Washington or Trump administration is quite silent on the Gaza's aggression, but EU took sanction initiative?
Thank you, Mr. Kanchan. One must notice that this time around when Donald Trump visited the Middle East, he didn't visit Israel, which he did in the last round when he was here. Not just that, we're seeing a type of relationship between the EU and the United States of America. Donald Trump has successfully made going into war unfashionable, which has made all the other countries, all the big continents on the planet to talk a possible ceasefire to any kind of active war front. Before, we used to see the Western countries used to be in support of Israel, being in support of their offensive with Palestine, and there was a situation where the Palestinian state still had some kind of communal harmony. The two-country solution was still somewhat visible. That was many years ago. Now, as you said, that most of the Western nations, the UK and the EU, they are looking in the face of a famine-like situation. World media will be asking them, where were you when such a famine had broken out in the Palestine and the Gaza Strip? Then they realize, Keir Starmer's government in the UK realized this has gone by far out of hand and they must do something about Israel. Definitely, this will put the pressure economically on Israel, and so that Israel may counter their offensive and stop harming innocent civilians in the name of calling them Hamas terrorists. Not only that, Russia is set to face the 18th round of sanctions by the EU, and not just that, we've seen last 3.5 years Russia trying to attack Ukraine, dominating that border they share together, and most of the land they have taken away or invaded them and taken under their control. So I would say Donald Trump's leadership in the first 5 months, as we've seen right about now, would be that he has made going into war unfashionable. So many world leaders are following his kind of rhetoric in world affairs.
I just want to go to Professor Nilaranjan Biswas. He is the Professor of International Relations at University of Dhaka, very senior professor. Sir, my question is, this is very unusual. An American president who has lost the election with Joe Biden in 2020, he became again president, and his behavior, his statements, his movement, everything is different this time. Before election, he said, when I become the president of United States of America, I will stop the war. He is trying to stop the war in South Asia, in India and Pakistan. He is focusing on Russia, Ukraine. But did you find any initiative he is taking regarding the Gaza and Israel? This is my question number one. And question number two is, how far the international trade wars is going on? China is very aggressive to move into West and Africa. But America is trying to put tariffs on China to stop its movement. Do you think here Donald Trump's two moves will work and will give benefits to the American citizen?
Thank you so much. Very critical questions. And of course, sometimes we spend like hours and hours to analyze these issues, but try to provide an overview, perhaps some personal opinion as well. I think, first question is why, what is happening in the Middle East, particularly in the Israel Hamas front and Gaza Strip, the stark violation of human rights, a case of genocide, and at the same time mass killing has been happening. So what United States has been doing? Like, in one hand, if you see the conversation that has been going on since last year and after January, the oath taking of the current administration, United States as an administration, as part of its foreign policy, has been trying to create or construct a ceasefire deal, and there were a lot of impediments. So, for example, often significant oppositions were coming from, for example, China and United States, Russian Federation, when it is about a discussion in the Security Council. And we understand in the Security Council it is always about politics of veto, and where you'd have this, problems between the US or Western bloc versus the anti-Western bloc. So this and when there were offered or a kind of initiative was taken by the others, for example, China once took as well, and it was not appreciated by the United States. So there were arguments and counter arguments, and we saw a very delayed approach to bring a ceasefire over here. And ceasefire plus a humanitarian corridor to continue the humanitarian support in the Gaza Strip, to support the civilians, huge number of children, as we know that this is one of the the largest event where a large number of children died as well, very unfortunately. But we saw we saw events, and even 3 days before we saw events where Israel has violated the ceasefire, supported or facilitated by United Nations and things like that. So it and that's why the discussion where why certain countries, particularly United Kingdom, went against and gave a statement that if this cases continue, they would be willing to create their own kind of individual sanctions over Israel to do this kind of situation. So it seems like that the entire international structure is not really having an autonomous or functional, I would like to say a functional kind of implementable idea to stop this solution, and Israel is kind of dominating this situation, which kind of gives us a feeling whether the intergovernmental organizations are really successful or capable, or they really have the autonomy to stop a conflict of this kind, rather than the state is still very powerful. I'm talking about Israel as a state, which is doing all this kind of things. So yes, I mean, I would say that under the new administration, President Donald Trump is obviously trying, but it's not bringing into the solution, because the way of bringing the solution to this crisis is quite different. Because you also know very well that when President Donald Trump presented its idea of rebuilding Gaza, was quite seriously resisted by leaders even from the West, minorly, but mostly from the Middle East. So Saudi Arab also, I mean, this is the case before his visit last week to Middle East. But in the recent visit, this discussion was probably not at the top of the agenda, which we understood, because the agenda was how to deal with the Iranian nuclearization issue, how to deal with the future of Syria, and of course to ease down the Middle East and other crises, and to gather the support of the Sunni world, we can understand. So Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait and others, so that things would happen. So this is unfortunate, but we may need to wait a little bit to see a solution. The solution that the Western world, and particularly United States led solution that we will see, might not be the ideal one, but as of now we do not see any other alternative plans offered by either United Nations or any other members of the Security Council, if we consider that those are the primary mediators of any conflict in the world. So we do not see any alternative plan. That is also very unfortunate. So that's what I was trying to maintain. And the trade issue, sorry, I took a bit of time to discuss that issue, but okay. Briefly on the trade issue, I think most of it were rhetoric, and we understand the political rhetoric is very important, whether it is security affairs or it is trade affairs. So the tariff related announcements were a political tool to bring every actors into a negotiation table for the United States to curtail down its trade deficit with most of the countries. As we understand, the USA has long been transformed from a manufacturing hub to a non-manufacturing and import dependent countries, because obviously labor price become very high and the economy got really strong. So of course it's the largest economy still now. But at the same time, the major concern was the manufacturing hub was moving towards the places where the cost of labor is, of course, more affordable for the investors. Now, he wants to bring it back. It's as one of its election promise. And of course, he wants to create more jobs. So it's very usual for anyone who would like to be a president of the United States and promise the people of its own country that how he will do that. One of the reasons is to bring all the countries into a negotiation term that how we can decrease the trade deficit, where you can also import from our country, not only we import from your
Yes,
country.
and he is still talking about he wants to make America great
again.
When we are going to a short break, ladies and gentlemen. When I'll be back, I'll have a very critical question to our international affairs commentator Shamsulam Pantho as well. You know, President Donald Trump always say Modi is his friend. Modi proudly says Donald Trump is his good friend. But yesterday, one very diagonally opposite or paradigm shift has taken by Donald Trump. He made a phone call to Tim Cook, the Apple CEO, and he said, hey, you are my good friend as well. Are you going to invest in India for Apple? He said, yes. Donald Trump says, don't do it. And huge repercussion is going on in India. As a friend of India, why Donald Trump is pushing Tim Cook not to come to India to investment? This will be a critical discussion after the break. Let us go for the break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Before the break, I was talking that I will do a complicated question to our international affairs commentator Pantho. That is, India says America is their friend. America says India is their good friend. Both Modi and Trump several different times they are good friend. But yesterday, Trump made a phone call to Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, and he said, don't go to India, don't invest in India. India is a terrorist country. I just heard this news from CNN. Let me ask this question to Shamsul Alam Pantho. Why Donald Trump has taken such a diagonally opposite position with the friendship of India, and why he took a paradigm shift?
In his 45th presidency, the first term of Donald Trump, we've seen a world of difference while he became the 47th president. So at this moment, Donald Trump hasn't made a visit to India in the last 5-6 months. Of course, that Narendra Modi and Donald Trump do share a friendship. But in my understanding and knowledge, when world rhetoric and world politics is of question, no one is actually friend or foe. They are only partners or non-trading partners. So, in my opinion, you must look at Donald Trump's tariff policy, that he reciprocal tariffs, and not just that, even in Bangladesh, India, China, everyone was heavily tariffed. What this means is, when a company like Apple, you said before, he told Tim Cook to be wary of his investment in India. Apple, as you know, is a giant in the consumer electronics field. Not just their iPhone, but their MacBooks, their several range of products. So their manufacturing must be coming from a place that it's affordable to create and to have a set profit margin for the company to flourish. Not just that, to my understanding, that China was the global manufacturing hub. Now it is having a spill-out effect. That spill-out countries are capitalizing, such as Vietnam, such as India, Laos, Cambodia. They're all capitalizing the fact that since China had become the global manufacturing hub, now that the labor and the cost of continuous labor has increased, most of the global manufacturing companies or companies that are based on manufacturing, they are choosing cheaper alternatives so that they can realize their profit margins. So once again, if India were to host the manufacturing of Apple products, will Apple be able to retain its quality? That is the number one concern to Donald Trump's administration, in my opinion.
That's really good. But I was listening Times of India, a live talk show this morning, and commentators like Satish Jacob, he was telling that after China, America started a trade war with China, India. I will come back to Professor Niloy Ranjan Bishwas, and you have a different topics for this. Senate hearing turns contentious. You know, Senators Marco Rubio, who is now the foreign minister, or what we call state secretary of United States, and Chris Van Hollen engaged in a heated exchange during a Senate hearing over the Trump administration's foreign policy decisions. They both criticized on Trump's foreign policy decisions, but Marco Rubio is the foreign secretary of Donald Trump. What's going on there?
Right. I think, this is particularly on the last 6 months or 5 months experience, perhaps, between in the discussion that is happening in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. But as you can understand, the foreign policy is very much institutionalized in United States, despite there is an interesting tussle between at least more than one center of gravity in the US foreign policy. And history suggests that US foreign policy is not always concentrated within the Department of State, and White House and also particularly Department of Defense played a very significant role. Like, for example, if you look at the entire foreign policy decision making and also implementation during the war on terror era, and even post war on terror when Barack Obama took power and still counterterrorism was going on, Department of Defense used to be a significant post where we could see like a majority of the budget of the US foreign policy was actually given to Department of Defense for its implementation, particularly in Afghanistan and Iraq. Now, the issue is who is holding the center of gravity in deciding foreign policies. The infrastructure, the institution says that it is not only White House or Department of State, and also as a democratic country, the foreign relation committees from both Senate and House Congress of Representatives, they play very important roles. But if you look at it, for example, particularly after this new administration has taken place in the last couple of months, there are certain issues where it looks like Department of State has been, I would not say neutralized to a large extent, but White House is enjoying the upper hand on many issues regarding foreign policy.
So
by
you
issuing
want to say that State Department has been marginalized in some aspects?
I think to a large extent, and President has been taking decisions through executive directives. It has happened not only in internal affairs, but also in various external affairs. And trade relations and imposing tariff is a significant one. And you understand that sometimes these executive directives are only applied for 90 days until unless it is approved by the one of these committees from the parliament that they have, the houses that they have. So, this is very significant part of the institutionalizing of the foreign policy. So, this tussle has been always over there, who is more powerful, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, or it is the President who is holding the unique power, center of gravity of deciding on foreign policies.
Sir, I just want to hear one thing from you. I myself feel very hopeless when I see the Arabian leaders are so divided in terms of Israel-Palestine issue. It's a long 90 years of issue. Why Arabians are divided in this particular issue? Because it has a plan to two-state solutions.
Right.
Still now it is hanging, and Israel is dominating, killing innocent people, women and children, but Arabians are still divided. Why? My question is a big why, sir.
Right. Thank you so much. I mean, although we have seen, and this has been used as a terminology, that Arabian nationalism or pan-Arabianism as like, we hear Pan-Africanism, but it is very true that Arabian nations and the idea of Arabian nationalism, to my opinion, has never been very homogeneous in many issues. There are divisions on the basis of sectarianism, there are divisions on the basis of political nationalism. We have once seen the emergence of very leftist socialist leaders in the Arab world as well. But then later on, much more in the 21st century, we have seen the divisions on the basis of religious division even within Islam. So there were Shia dominated, we can understand Iran, Syria, and also we have experienced the Sunni led world or the faction within the Arab world, mostly led by Saudi Arab, the imperial country. So the idea is it is not homogeneous, therefore we have seen divisions on various issues, particularly on issues that how they will deal with the crisis regarding Israel and Palestine and the idea of two-state theories. I mean, broadly, you won't probably see that, no one really wants that Palestine should be recognized. I mean, everyone probably wants in the Arab world that Palestine should be recognized as a state. There is no doubt about it. But the problem is how they would do it. Will there be a unity of among the government, among the states on this particular issue? The biggest difference between the Shia and Sunni led, factions within Arab world and their way of solving this crisis has been the major issue. So it is more a methodological, or in the research language we say epistemological difference. Every one of them wants that the Palestine should get a state status, it should be considered as a state, but how they would like to do it. That is so there is a difference in the methodology. And the other issue is that power politics, unfortunately, power politics gets priority than the normative politics of maintaining the idea of human rights and all those neoliberal values. And the power politics is that what the transactionalism suggests, that how Saudi Arabia and United States are very good friends, and therefore we cannot see the way how Iran reacts is not the way how Saudi Arabia or Egypt will react in this particular case. So they highlight the agenda. They are completely in favor of the Palestinian people, every one of them, but the way how they would solve the problem, whether to create pressure or to take a coercive measure, the way how Iran has taken an approach to deal with Israel issue, that is not the similar way to the other faction in the Arab world.
Sir, I guess our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Panto had something to complement or debate with you. I think he was taking preparation, I have seen.
Yes, according to Mr. Bishwash here, definitely the Shia-Sunni divide has been there over the centuries, and according to the media report, and also as we see in the Middle East, the Palestinian people have been left alone. No one has been actively seen being aiding, coming to their interest. More so, Bangladesh as a country so far away from direct influence in the Middle East, we are showing solidarity along with Indonesia and major other Muslim nations with Palestine, whereas you see Qatar, you see UAE, you see Saudi Arabia, them being so close to this conflict, they are not holding regional stability talks every 6 months, or they are not holding talk with Israel on how to counter this issue, whereas the Western world is continuously pressurizing these Islamic countries into normalization with Israel. So much of the world rhetoric regarding this issue is now finally changing, as we see the UK, France and Canada trying to pressure Israel, stating that your own existence will be questioned in the coming days if you continue on this offensive.
Sir, do you find any possibilities in 2025, I mean this year, world is going to be witnessed with so many new events, with so many new hassles, with so many new lineup or allies, or in different ways. One country will go to other dimension, another country will go to other diversification. I will have the same question to you, sir, as well. First, Panthu.
We are so far away from World War I and World War II. Without question, whether we are living in World War III is questionable, as we see technological developments and changing the front of war as technology has developed. Today it's been a drone strike, a nuclear strike, or more of Cold War or different old practices in war which are not of the book. Before it was how can navies attack through a border, then take enough territory across the shoreline and create a pressure with the central government. That's how war was conducted in the older days. Messaging, as you know, 100 years ago, the messaging services, the mailing services were quite different when a war broke out between two of the parties. Exactly what happened in the front line or in the field would take certain amount of time before reaching out to all the households and all the news agencies. So as we see, technological development has not provided us advantage, more as it has provided us with updated news, updated information regarding war as it happens. As human beings, we should really condemn war on any front. That would be my take on the matter.
Very well said. Sir, I want to just come to you with the same questions, but before I give you the time, I have one line to add. The same leadership we are watching last almost 15 to 20 years. At China, Xi Jinping; at America, Donald Trump in second times, and Putin is almost 20 years. In India, Modi is in 15 years. So the same leadership, but events are new. The same leadership, the dimensions are new. The same leadership, but world is going to be divided in different parts. What do you think?
Thank you so much. I think we have moved forward from obviously a very bipolar world during the Cold War time to a singular unipolar world for a very short period of time, which many would desire, not agree with that, whether we were at all at an unipolar world situation, except the end of the history written by Francis Fukuyama. But later on, from War on Terror and onwards, we have seen that it is very complicated multipolar world. So it is divided for obvious reasons, not only because there are multiple stakeholders that have emerged, and we cannot really arguably say that state is the most powerful country, despite it is the state who holds the nuclear power at this moment. But at the same time, we have experienced that how non-state actors have totally ignored a nuclear power state and conduct an action of terrorism, and therefore we have seen that the world politics have totally turned in a very different way. So these the nature of uncertainties and the factors of destabilization have diffused to a large extent. The reasons are, at one point of time when we knew that war would have happened, there was a declaration and there was an end of war by another declaration. Now we see wars start almost all of a sudden, and more than the wars between the state, we have experienced, particularly since 90s onward, interstate conflicts. And these conflicts does not really have a particular battlegrounds. We often do not know who are our enemies, are there in any uniforms, and they are just like civilians, they can do any actions, and the battleground is in your neighborhood. If you look at it, Raqqa and all other cities of Syria and Middle East and Gaza, the way how Gaza was destroyed, very unfortunate. So all these things have actually indicated towards the fact that because of technological innovation, as you have mentioned very rightly, and at the same time technology has reached out to the people who are either exploiting in one explanation or have been using for their own sake, has created the world more uncertain in the way. I mean, that doesn't mean that stopping technological innovation is is a solution to the crisis, but of course uncertainty has increased to a large extent because we often are not very sure that how to deal with a situation, or conflict is the only situation to deal with the matter, and who are we fighting with. I'm talking about states or non-state actors in this particular case. So uncertainties and lack of confidence, my last small point is lack of confidence over neoliberal world order, the way how we thought that after Cold War we would solve every crisis in the way how, for example, using United Nations, for example, using the neoliberal structure, democracy, and all those kind of value-based system where we think that a free and open world would be the solution of all crises. Unfortunately, we see that it has not been able to solve all the crises. Rather, many would argue, even in the Western world, that whether we have to rethink what is the neoliberal world order, because in many countries you see the rise of populist leadership who themselves does not rely on the neoliberal world order and its capacity to solve a crisis.
Yeah,
so
very loud and clear, Professor Nilay Ranjan Biswas. I really like the way you explain very complicated things into very easy things. Before I conclude, I have a breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. At the BRICS Energy Ministers meeting in Brazil, India emphasized the need of a stronger energy cooperation among global South nations. The focus on sustainable and secure energy development worldwide. I must say India is very smart, because they are engaged with war and conflicts with the neighboring countries, but they are trying to do their energy problem as well. Before I conclude, I want to say that today is 21st May. UNESCO leads the celebration of World Day of Cultural Diversity for Dialogue and Development. Ladies and gentlemen, dialogue and development is very important to enrich the nations for cultural diversity, and today is International Cultural Diversity Day. Let us be humble, let us be culturally enriched, let us be educationally enriched, let us not to encourage wars and fights between the nations. Especially thanks to Professor Dr. Niloy Ranjan Biswas, Professor International Relations Department, University of Dhaka, and also our International Affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Pantho. I really enjoyed the discussion. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you tomorrow.
Thank you.